Chapter 7. Try a truther detox. Detox your mind, body, and your contact list. Supernova Slom. The reality misconception. In a general sense, as I'm using the term, truther refers to anyone regularly placing agency, i.e., power, outside individual and collective conscious attention. In other words, whether they're aware of their error or otherwise, truthers falsely insist on affirming a pre-existing arbitrary reality outside the purview of our own creatively applied awareness. My position, one I share with countless mystics, yogis, shamans, alchemists, and other way outside the boxers, is that there's no verifiable outside reality, no tangible home base in the real. Instead, there's only a simulacrum, or, more accurately perhaps, a simulation-style dreamscape mimicking an actual physical world inside an infinity, the dark sea of awareness, of similarly attention-generated constructs. The reality misconception can take various forms. The two most common are materialism, in which a real world somehow manages to exist before or without anyone's awareness of it, and religion, in which a divine being or force remains in a world miraculously outside the world. If you believe such fairy tales, fine, but just don't call them truth. Maybe opinions based on secondhand knowledge would be a more accurate description. Or more straightforwardly, just call them mimetic implants. Meanwhile, as Neville Goddard so accurately and beautifully stated, we humans live in a world that is nothing more or less than our consciousness objectified. My view is that nothing can ultimately be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, except to oneself via the wisdom or gnosis of personal experience. And anything and everything can be easily debunked by the cavalier exercise of the fraudulent Dieu du jour, reason. Carlos Castaneda famously described humanity's collective perceptual lens, its so-called assemblage point, as being currently stuck in the extremely limiting place of reason. The situation is profoundly absurd because while reason is smugly convinced of its rightness, in actuality it's merely one of an infinitude of possible interpretations of the many fictitious rules and laws that supposedly govern this forever malleable construct. On the subject of the false god of reason, I love the following penetrating passage from John Criter. Clearly, he was influenced by Castaneda's perspective, only to go well beyond the latter's purview in many important respects. Read it several times if necessary to let its full implications sink in. True logic is not reason, but reason can be said to be a small branch of logic, a type of group-based deductive logical scheme that relies on the mass power of the group in order to impose a perceptive orderliness in human consciousness and therefore the human objective world. One could think of reason as being the enforcement arm that helps to bring a certain slant to individual mass consciousness. The evolution of reason throughout human history is really the refinement of a certain type of limited self-awareness and individuality. This individual consciousness is irreversibly linked to mass human consciousness because the self that we call the individual is in reality a product of a mass mental movement referred to as reason. Not to put too fine a point on it, but the point is that the lens of reason, by focalizing our commandeered attention in a certain way, under the skillful direction of the dragon, has created this mess of a world we live in. Isn't that reason enough to distrust reason and begin putting a little more faith in something, anything else, say intuition? Reification, or making shit real. In essence, truthers, by doggedly searching for the holy grail of an external absolute, perpetuate the fatal snafu of separating the creator from the created. But as I proposed, the creator and the created are one creature, the Ouroboros forever consuming and producing itself simultaneously. In maintaining such a faulty reason-based mindset, truthers do a number of disservices to themselves, their message, and their followers here in this subjective construct, in which objectivity is merely a myth of overweening science. As I once quipped, always, always, always put science in quotes. A major disservice in this scenario is that truthing inevitably leads to disempowerment, in which people, lured by the false promise of solutions, are tricked into stepping outside themselves again and again for answers to their personal and collective dilemmas, when, as I repeat, the only way out is in. At their most benign or least malignant, truthers are genuine seekers doing the best they can and sharing their truth. While they've been led astray by reason and are playing the Pied Piper for others in turn, at least they're not doing this intentionally. Even though their heads may be confused, their hearts are mostly in the right place. At their worst, truthers know exactly what they're doing, in my opinion anyway, and are happy to serve as parasitic mind controllers on the payroll of our tutelary spiritual adversary, the dragon. In this capacity, truthers are indistinguishable from cult leaders. Both knowingly extract money and loosh, or secondhand vital force, for their own purposes before tithing a significant portion of the stolen attention power up the food chain of the world cult to the god, the dragon, or great parasite, who sits atop it. Truthers are experts, conscious or otherwise, at promoting doomsday and other negative and or limiting outcomes through manufactured consent that works exactly the same way as today's mainstream press that delivers subjectively driven, outcome-generating narratives in lieu of objectively reported news. Reification is a helpful concept to emphasize here. To reify, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, means to make something more real or consider it as real. By using a toolkit of brainwashing tactics for tapping into mimetic desire in order to energize the power of collective belief in whatever, a scientific model, a version of history, a conspiracy theory, etc., truthers aren't discovering truth. They're just making shit real. That, my friends, in a soundbite, is how this world, on personal as well as communal levels, manifests. Like it or not, we're doomed or blessed, depending on your perspective, to inhabit an eternally looping circuit that involves our thoughts, innermost desires, actions, etc., in telling back to us the story we're telling about our lives, individually and collectively. Truthers are on the payroll. That's how they roll. Regardless of their degree of complicity in creating groupthink via public gaslighting, it must be stressed that a major motivation of both kinds of truthers mentioned above was summed up by Upton Sinclair when he said, "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it." Or as I put it in these lyrics to a song called Doom Scrollin', today's doom prophets are all about profit. They're on the payroll. That's how they roll. I don't need the right wing or the left wing. I'm growing my own wings. Thank you very much. It doesn't matter what truther specialization one has in mind, and there are multitudes to choose from. Secret societies, extraterrestrials, hollow earth, Tartaria, mud floods, plasma apocalypse, rogue planets, or other doomsday clickbaitery full of sound and fury signifying a load of nothing. Regardless of whether they desire to be of service to humanity, truthers, despite any and all metaphysical leanings, by definition succumb to a critical error that makes them part of the problem, not the solution. Adherence to something ostensibly real, a real truth in a manifestly contrived mindscape. In The World Cult and You, I was careful to distinguish between truthers and other types of consciousness explorers. Truthers, I said, are perilous to those with a questioning nature because they give the false comfort illusion, one perfectly attuned to this age of disillusionment with religion and even science, of providing answers to the fake reality's mysteries, even though when you examine their track records, they do no such thing. Note that I'm not talking about most consciousness explorers and reality researchers here. Truthers focus on solutions in the outside world, while the majority of sincere psychonauts understand that there is no outside world, and that empowerment in and escape from this crazy construct can only be an inside job. The best psychonauts, or mappers of consciousness, could care less what appears to be, or not be, happening in the external reality, which, by the way, in a way that undermines the real in everyday terms, appears at least somewhat different for everyone. Instead, devoted psychonauts are concerned with the internally generated dream that gives rise to the illusory dreamscape called reality. Author Ken Eaglefeather succinctly explains why the mastery of conscious dreaming, as opposed to fighting the good fight in the real world, is of utmost importance for anyone seeking to create his or her experience. Reality, or at least the perception of it, is an ever-expanding dream. Psychonauts may reference what is taken for reality, as we all must do if we wish to communicate with one another, but they don't seek answers there, as they grok that the construct is a funhouse of creative mirrors that merely reflect back to us the real that we see in them. Truly, we're the creators of all that we behold. If you fail to grasp this operational principle, it pretty much doesn't matter how smart or talented a researcher you are. Inevitably, you'll just go in circles while forever convincing yourself and your followers that you're hot on the trail of a major breakthrough. Ready for a parasite cleanse? A related analogy for conceptualizing how truthing functions is that research in the matrix might be said to merely create rabbit holes that go ever deeper into the matrix. In a mind-bending Aikido move of its own, the matrix makes it so that the closer truthers and other mundane researchers feel they are to the truth, the further they technically are from it. At the risk of stating the obvious, when one has parasites, even mental ones like the great parasite and its mouthy minions, the only remedy is to do a parasite cleanse. This means that for a full week, if you're willing to give it a try in good faith, you'll go cold turkey off fear porn and useless research while focusing solely on empowering yourself. You may suffer withdrawal symptoms. Most truth junkies do. Delirium tremens isn't uncommon, but that's okay. You'll start to feel much steadier, lighter, and clearer in no time. Besides, what do you really have to lose, except mental parasites? Productive alternatives to doom scrolling. During and also after your week-long vacation for the heart and mind, the following 11 activities, listed in no particular order of importance, are healthy alternatives to wasting your precious time and energy materializing someone else's vision of worldwide chaos and destruction. See what works for you, give it a go, and watch your life change rapidly for the better. 1. Make a video or write a blog post of your own vision of a positive future to energize a different outcome. 2. Honor someone you love with a poem, a portrait, or another creative tribute to a meaningful connection in your life. 3. Pick up a new hobby or learn a different sport to change your neurological pathways and open up novel cognitive possibilities beyond today's pervasive fear porn. 4. Move your body with dance, surfing, qigong, or whatever else turns you on to shake off the over-the-top doom and gloom and embrace the limitless potential of the present moment. 5. Really focus all the creative power of your attention on something incredibly positive you'd love to see happen in your life for 5 minutes a day until it happens. 6. Repeat the above with something you'd love to witness in the world at large. Shoot, put in 10 minutes a day if you can spare the time. Lord knows this world needs all the help it can get. 7. Make it a point to change one judgmental reaction a day to its opposite, non-judgmental okayness. 8. Find ways to laugh at genuinely funny things, people, and situations, at your own follies and shortcomings, at the profound absurdity of it all. Let laughter empty you of self-importance and fill you back up with creative helium until you're light enough to float. 9. Choose peaceful silence the next time conflict crops up in your life. 10. Share empowering messages with friends and followers to pay your attention forward into a brighter future for all. 11. Choose one day a week to go off socials completely. Use this time to nurture yourself and come up with additional strategies to unplug from a society self-destructively addicted to doom scrolling.